So with that being said, Sebastian, the floor is yours. Everybody give him a round of applause.
Amazing. All right, everybody up real quick. Let's reset the room. Look the person to your left, to right, and go, man, you are good looking, and I am so glad you're here today. Hey. All right, are we good? Is my mic up? Is that just me? Is it back there? Maybe bring me up just a hair just so I can hear myself a little bit better. All right, go ahead and take a seat, please. Brandon, thank you for, number one, the invitation, and Spring as well. It is a privilege to be in anybody else's room, anybody else's stage, anybody else's opportunity. I've been gifted the unique opportunity of having the platform for the past 15 years, and it is a privilege, and it is something that is earned. It is not given. There's a lot of people this day and age that want to become a speaker and an author and do all the things, and they want to take all the shortcuts. It just doesn't work like that. Any gamblers in the room? Liars. All right, I'm taking 5-1 odds. I'm going to bomb this talk. So anybody want action on that? So I used to be a degenerate. Now I'm a degenerate gambler. That started at a very young age, though. When I was 8 years old, my dad bet me $5 that I would not pass the spelling bee. And he was right. I purposely got up there and spelled cat with a K just so I could sit down. That's not a true story, but it should be, because it's a great example of someone's first experience of not showing up. If we look back to when we were young, when someone challenged us to do something that we wanted to do, but we were a little hesitant about it, and when they challenged us, we were like, I'm out. So that leads me to ask you, I want to share 3 points and principles, whatever you want to call them, with you today. And my goal is to act as a human defibrillator. I'm here to wake you guys up in some areas you didn't know you need to be waking up in. Is everybody okay with that? Say yes or yes. Good. Let me ask you a question. This question was asked to me 15 years ago. You ever had those moments where somebody says something to you and everything changes? This was one of those moments. The question I want to ask you today is, who's missing out because you're not showing up? Friends, I'm not talking about physically showing up. Congratulations on making it here today. In fact, it's our unique privilege to host you, to have people come and listen to what you have to say. What a gift. But there are areas in your life that you're not showing up and somebody is missing out. It was 15 years ago. The real estate market had crashed. I had just moved back from Southern California to Miami with my daughter in a duffel bag. I raised my daughter on my own, and I had to get back to Florida where there was family and some sort of starting over grounds. And from 2008, 2010, I just felt sorry for myself. I sucked my thumb all day. I drank bum beer, and I thought, how could I ever get here? How did I get to the top of the mountain? I'm at the bottom of the mountain. Well, it was called poor planning and an ego, Sebastian, but I didn't realize that then. In 2010, I had an awakening moment. I said, enough. I have a gift, and I got to do something about it. I got to get up, and I got to dust myself off. I know what I'm going to do. I need to go see Tony Robbins. So I knew I'm good friends with Tony's son, Jarek, and I called his girlfriend at the time, and she was a sales rep for Tony Robbins. And I said, hey, I want to go to Unleash the Power Within. Can you give me all the details? And she said, I can. Here's the rundown. I had like $6 to my name. I had no idea how I was going to get to Long Beach, California to go walk on fire with Tony Robbins. But the intention was there. She called me back an hour later and she said, oh my God, I totally forgot that my best friend lives on Miami Beach and she's part of Tony's core team of 6. She travels the world with him. I think that would be a good introduction for you. Now, at this time, I'm thinking, what in the world could I possibly bring to the table for somebody who travels with Tony Robbins? I said, well, Sebastian, we got nothing to lose, literally. So let's just show up, make the introduction. So we did. We met up for a drink that Friday afternoon, and I'll never forget it. We were sitting on Ocean Drive at TGI Fridays because I was scared I wasn't going to have enough money to pay the bill, so I recommended Fridays instead of a fancy steakhouse. And we quickly got into a conversation because we had hit it off, and she said, hey, Sebastian, what's next? And I said, I don't know. And I've known her 10 minutes. She looked at me in the eyes, and she goes, that is a fucking problem. Now, these are my offended days. So I'm thinking to myself, who does this chick think she is telling me what I'm doing with my life is a problem? Humbling moment. Sebastian, you got $6 to your name. You drove a Rusk bucket over here that you have to hit the starter in order to start the car. Shh, you may want to listen. I said, so what do you mean? She said, I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Let me ask you a question. Who's missing out? Because you're not showing up. And I thought, I have never even thought about that question. She goes, I bet you haven't. And most haven't. And that's the problem with the world. Sebastian, I've known you 10 minutes. I can tell that you're a charismatic guy. You got energy. You got enthusiasm. You have a gift and a talent. Not everybody has a gift, a talent, and the whole enchilada. And you do. Now, I didn't see this at the time, but she did. It was that very moment everything changed. That Monday I had created an idea and a concept for my digital agency. I started running around town. I put a bow tie on. I'd speak wherever you had me, churches, organizations, Rotary clubs, a soapbox in your backyard. You name it, the answer is yes. Right around that time, I met a guy by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk. Some of you might have heard of him. And nobody knew who he was at the time, but I knew he was going somewhere. I said, this guy's going to be a worldwide phenomenon. So I befriended him. He became a mentor and an incredible influence in my life and impact on what I was doing. But it was that moment, that question of who's missing out because you're not showing up. And I said, the only way for this to stop is for me to show up. And it starts right now. So when you think about that question, I really wanted to trigger you. I wanted to stay with you. I wanted to keep you up at night because it's vital. It is the absolute compass that steers the ship of your entire life. Because when you don't show up, someone else misses out. You have to understand we all have a story. We all have a gift. And other people are attached to that story and gift. How grossly negligent are you to let somebody else miss out because you decide you just want to sit there scared, clammed up, and in your own little bullshit story that isn't even true. So the first point is who's missing out because you're not showing up. When we show up, we empower other people, oh, by the way, and ourselves to show up too. The ability to get up here and share my gift with you today and share a couple of points and talk to you about what I came to talk to you about today could very well empower your entire speaking career. You go, I went to Dallas, Texas this one time. This guy with the podcast sucks shirt walked in. I didn't know hat walked in. I didn't even know who the hell this guy was. Got up there to ask me who's missing out because I'm not showing up. And I was like, shit, I wasn't showing up. That was me. And you went out and you did something with it, like I did. It wasn't always that easy, though. I did that for about 6 years with the bow ties, and I was an MC for large conferences, and I wrote my first book, and I did all the things. And then in 2016, I woke up and I said, I'm just not happy with the work that I'm doing. In fact, I hate it. I don't want to do it one more day. But I think it's time for a girlfriend. So I hopped on Tinder. March 1st, 2016, and I met a girl. Met her in downtown Fort Lauderdale, like a Tuesday afternoon. And she said, I'm in this personal development program. And I said, personal development? Talk to me about it. Walked on Fire with Tony Robbins 2 times. The Landmark Forum, graduate. What I didn't tell her was that I would go to these things for pomp and circumstance, and I would come back and I would implement absolutely nothing. It was a walk-in quack. And she said, hey, I think you should check out this course. And I said, hey, I'm integrating right now. But thank you. 2 weeks later, she had signed me up for that course and enrolled me in it. Extremely resistant to change and what I had to do. Extremely. But I walked into that room resistant. I walked out reborn. She also broke up with me in the middle of the training as if personal development isn't hard enough. Let's throw a little bit of heartbreak in the mix. Friends, in my world of podcasting, if you don't show up, you lose. The end. Starting a podcast will radically change your life and your business if you let it. The podcast is the recording the episodes, very small aspect. Who you get to become in the process, everything. Brandon's living proof. I'm living proof. The people that I get the opportunity to work with are living proof. Well, Sebastian, I don't even know why I would want to start a podcast. Why should I? I don't know. Why should you? I've come up with 3 reasons I think are valid. because I've lived them. And that is, number one, start a podcast to interview people that you want to do business with. What a novel idea. We all love networking. We all love connecting. Start a podcast to interview people you want to do business with and build a relationship. Secondly, get your social media content game in check and consistent because of the podcast. One podcast episode, multiple pieces of micro content. Your social media content strategy is no longer non-existent on a daily basis because of the podcast. And then the last is become a better communicator. Everybody's in this room right now to become a better communicator. People's number one fear is public speaking. You know what number two is? Dying. Riddle me that one. So when I say starting a podcast will radically change your life and your business, that's what I mean about that. Everybody picking up what I'm putting down there, say yes or yes. Great. As part of this process, as part of this becoming, I went through this course that radically changed my life for the better. But when I got out of it, I realized I didn't hate the work I was doing. I hated myself. And when you hate yourself, you hate everybody around you. You hate everything you're doing. It's everybody else's fault. You're a victim. It's just a really bad place to be. So I decided I wanted to do something about it. And as resistant as I was to that training, I walked out of that training with one of the most valuable assets I'll ever have in my entire life. And that was the ability to love myself. Because someone said, Sebastian, when you love yourself, you attract other people that love themselves. And then you can get out there and really make some impact. And I said, I want to do that. In addition to that, I became fully accountable for my life, past, present, and future. I was done blaming mom and dad. I was done blaming dad for who he married. I was done blaming mom for leaving. I picked up the phone. I called my dad. I said, hey, Dad, I just wanted to tell you that I love you. And I got my power back. And you're my only dad, and I'm your only son. And we don't have the best relationship, but I'm going to love you where you're at. I'm going to compartmentalize you in the most healthy way and love you from a distance because we're only doing this thing one time. He didn't know what in the world that phone call came from. But that phone call wasn't for Dad. The phone call was for me. When you become fully accountable for your life, past, present, and future, and you own it and realizing it's nobody else's fault but yours, changes everything. But I had to make a decision. And I want you to think about this decision too, and I'm going to challenge and invite all of you to consider doing the same thing. Another question. Everybody ready? Say yes or yes. Are you willing to give up who you've become to be who you are? That's a tongue twister, kind of a riddle. I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. Are you willing to give up who you've become to be who you are? Had I not went through that personal development course and said, I'm willing to shed Sebastian up to 35 years old. I'm willing to shed it all and be reborn and step into a completely different version of myself. I have a gift. I have a talent. And who am I to waste it? And what's more, who am I to not share it with the world? Now I get the opportunity to empower people to radically change their life and their business. And we do it through a vehicle that's a podcast, but the podcast is just a small part of that. But you got to be willing to give up who you've become to be who you are. Be with that for a minute. Who's missing out because I'm not showing up? Am I willing to give up who I've become to be who I are? That's a tricky one for some of us because we take our heels and we dig them in and we go, oh, this is who I am. How's that working? Probably not very well. The last point I want to share with you today is that you get to choose. Choice. One of the most powerful gifts we've all been given. Some of us make bad ones. Some of us make good ones. But we all get to choose. We get to choose how we show up. We get to choose our attitude about it. We get to choose what we want to do and how we want to do it. You see, podcasting is the proof. Podcasting is the process. Podcasting is the story that you tell. But the transformation, that's the promise. Who we get to become. I stand up here today 15 years later and go, man, I've done a lot of work, and I'm just getting started. But we've come a long way. And if you asked me 10 years ago if I would be taking the work I would be doing on Sebastian and bringing it back to the podcast studio, enabling other people to do the same similar work, but through means of a podcast to not only change their life, but their business, I would tell you that you got 10 heads and boogers and you are completely out of your tree. But here we are. And I choose to lean into that. But here's the thing about who we used to be. If you don't come to terms with who you used to be, who you're becoming will never make sense. Does that land for everybody? You got to go, cool. Up until 35 years old, I was a victim that hated myself. Cool. What did I do about it? I decided to make a conscious decision to love myself and change my life for the better. And it worked out. And now I get to continue to lift as I climb to be able to do that. I use a podcast as an accelerator for purpose-driven growth. I don't care about downloads. I don't care about any of that. I care about how is my life and my business being impacted? How is the person that I'm having a conversation being impacted? How can I leave them differently? If I never see any one of you ever again in my entire life, it is my hope and prayer that I left you different. That I said one thing, that you walked out of this room and you just did something about it. So let me ask you again, who's missing out? Because you're not showing up. Is it your kids? Is it your team? Is it your spouse? Is it you? We all have a decision. We have a choice that we get to make on a daily basis. But the more we just sit around and, well, I guess that's just the way it is. Language, very important. Spring's been incredible with correcting us on our language today. It's so important. I had to break the chains of scarcity in my family. We've heard the lines before, must be nice. You know what I say now? It is. You know why? Because I fucking made it that way. We don't have money for that. Cool, keep saying that. You never will. I can't afford that. Cool, keep saying that. You'll be right there. But I'm headed this way. My daughter's now 24. She lives about 25 minutes from here. She's completely self-sufficient. Graduated with a degree in psychology, finishing the master's program. She works at Buc-ee's. Any of you been to a Buc-ee's before? While she's finishing up school. Completely self-sufficient. She doesn't call me for anything. There's a little story behind it. She called me a couple years ago when she graduated. And she said, what do I have to do for you to stop telling me what to do with my life? And I said, stop calling me for money. She said, where do I sign? So now people say, what's the best parenting advice you have? Kick your kids out at 18, send them off to college so they learn about life. Fuck the education. They get that anyway. Cut them off financially about a year after college. Okay? And tell them, don't come back. My dad was like, ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, I know, I'm getting a 1-bedroom. I'm not kidding. But now she's 24 and self-sufficient. She'll pick up a bar tab. That's even bad. I mean, you talk about the ultimate apex of being a parent. But I had to become who I needed to be the man that I needed to be, the dad that I needed to be for her. I got to spend the afternoon with her. I get to see her again next week. I'm back in town for another gig, and it's just great to just be like, wow, I made you. And now you're an adult. And here we are. And now what the fuck do I do with my life? I have no idea. It's a whole nother realm of figuring out what we get to do. But that's what I'm committed to, figuring it out. And I have to ask myself on a daily basis, sometimes a weekly basis, hey, Sebastian, who's missing out because you're not showing up? Every single day I turn my shower on cold at the end. Settle down, you psychopaths. I don't take a full cold shower. I don't care what Frisella says. But at the end, I turn it to the end, and I say, Sebastian, who the fuck are you? And I say, I'm a powerful, lovable, authentic leader who is committed to helping people radically change their life and their business with a podcast. And I have to remind myself every day because the subconscious runs the game. So you got to tell the subconscious, hey, listen, motherfucker, I know you may run the show, but you don't. I run the show. And we can control it as much as we possibly can by constantly reminding ourselves on a daily basis that I'm a powerful, lovable, authentic leader. How do I keep scarcity at bay? Right after I remind myself that I'm a powerful, lovable, authentic leader, serving people and doing work that matters, I let myself know, and I learned it from my coach, Tony Robbins, that God's wealth is circulated in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, goals, and desires are met instantaneously through infinite intelligence, knowing that I am one with God, and God is everything. I'm a money magnet. Money flows to me effortlessly and easily. I repeat these things over and over and over. And I don't want to do these things. Have you ever been to Dallas in the winter? Crank that water on cold. That's a terrible idea. But I do it anyway because it's uncomfortable and life is uncomfortable. I hope these 3 things I've been able to share with you today are something you guys are going to be able to walk out of here and do something with. Do you think you may be able to do that? Say yes or yes. It's like forcing you to say yes on there. Who's missing out because you're not showing up? Are you willing to give up who you've become to be who you are? And you have a choice. Friends, it all starts with a decision, and it starts right now. Thank you.